Good evening. This is Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. This is Bill Morton, my co-host. He is the president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Our very special guest today is Patricia Tillman. She is the write-in candidate of the 21st Ward Alderman. Welcome, Patricia. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So, Patricia, I just want to start off with this. I was a write-in candidate 4 years ago, and we both know now that's a hard way to go. That's the hardest
Absolutely.
way to go. So why did you choose to become a write-in candidate for 21st Ward Alderman?
Well, I didn't choose to become the write-in candidate. When I started, there was 14 of us in the race, and I had the second most signatures in the race of 14 people. And I was challenged. My background was challenged. I was wrongfully convicted of a crime where the state had destroyed all the surveillance videos that was available that would have exonerated me, but they was allowed to destroy these videos. So I was challenged on my background. And that's what had me kicked off the ballot. And so I became a write-in candidate because I still wanted to run the race.
When were the videos destroyed? After you started running or before?
Oh, this case happened in 2017. So this happened in 2017. It's over 7 years. Well, yeah, about 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I was challenged because I had this in my background.
Mm-hmm. So the videos were destroyed way before the election then, is what they're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. And even I have here where it states that, let me read this. It says, a person is not eligible to take the oath of office for a municipal office if that person is at the time required for taking the oath of office in arrears in the payment of a tax or other indebtedness due to the municipality, or has been convicted in any court located in the United States of any infamous crime, bribery, perjury, or other felony, unless such person is again restored his or her rights of citizenship that may have been forfeited under Illinois law as a result of a conviction, which includes eligibility to hold elected municipal office by the terms of a pardon for the offense, has received a restoration of rights by the governor or other according to law. Anytime after a judgment of conviction is rendered, a person convicted of an infamous crime, bribery, perjury, or other felony may petition the governor for restoration of rights. So I don't understand how I was kicked off the ballot because it does not say, the law does not state that you cannot run. It states that you cannot take the oath of office if you have a conviction.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because I knew a guy in the 49th Ward who ran against the incumbents, and his partner, his husband, had a parking ticket. Just a parking. No, it was a moving violation, and he died. And he never knew he got the car, and they kicked him off the ballot for something as inconspicuous and
innocuous,
innocuous as that. So go ahead, please.
So it does not say you cannot run for office. It says you cannot take the oath of office. So I have petitioned the governor for a pardon. I have put in my documentation. As a matter of fact, in January, they was having hearings over there on Roosevelt and Halsted. And I had my petition in, so I asked would they hear my petition because expeditiously, because I'm running for this office, and they wouldn't hear it. But I did get it in by January the 26th. As a matter of fact, I submitted everything by January the 10th, which should have me on the April docket for my clemency to be heard. So it said if you get everything in by January the 26th, your clemency petition will be heard in April. So I did get everything in so that it can be heard. But the thing is, it does not say you cannot run. It says that you cannot take the oath of office, and at any time you can request a pardon from the governor, which I did do. So I should still be on that. I should have remained on the ballot, but they took me off.
But you were allowed to run as a write-in candidate, so you were officially as a write-in candidate on the ballot.
As a write-in candidate, yes, I was officially a write-in candidate, which makes it much more difficult because a lot of people does not understand the write-in process, and they're not familiar with that. So it makes it kind of difficult. And then after I had put out all my literature and everything, then I had to go back and let everyone know that you will not see my name on the ballot. You actually have to type my name in, and so when they go to the polling places, there's no one there that's actually trying to guide them with this information on how to do the write-in process.
So what you're doing is you're trying to get the clemency and the pardon, and then you do plan to run again once your record is clear.
Well, it's a shame that you can run for governor, you can run for congressman, you can run for senate, you can run for all these other offices, you can run for mayor with the background, but an alderman you cannot.
Is really? So for mayor of Chicago, if the mayor of Chicago has a background,
you can run for that office.
Oh.
And I find that, I can't even understand that. How is it that you can run for these higher level positions and can't run for an alderman?
Well, what made you want to run for alderman? What in your past convinced you that this was the right path for you?
Well, our community is a resource desert. There's no resources in the community for the children, for the returning citizens, for the senior citizens in our community. It's like a lot of senior citizens are losing their homes because they do not have access and do not know about the tax freeze in the community, and as an alderman, it's their job to put this information out into the community so that people can use these resources that's available to them. So I found that it was a lack of communication between the alderman and the community. I'm sorry?
As a result of that lack of communication, is the area gentrifying then?
Well, I'll say everything is becoming abandoned. We have a lot of abandoned buildings, and that's what they're going to do next. Yes.
So could you just let our viewers know you're running for 21st Ward Alderman. What communities does that encompass there?
That is Morgan Park, Washington Heights, Auburn, Gresham. What do we have there? A little part of Roseland, Pullman. So those few communities that we have there. It goes from anywhere from 123rd to 83rd Street, from Ashland and Vincennes, because it flip-flops, all the way. It can go as far back to State Street. At some point, it goes back to Wentworth, and then Harvard, and then Princeton on the east end.
So that sounds very gerrymandered.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like a very gerrymandered ward.
Yeah.
And
so
do you have any population numbers about?
This was one of my flyers when I first started as a candidate, when I was running. That was my first flyer. Then I had to become a write-in candidate. And the judge that actually sentenced me to this crime, and that's why I don't understand why I'm still being held up under this, because she was actually, they call it a secret vote, where the associate judges can be voted off the bench by the circuit court judges. And so they did a secret vote, and this judge, she was reprimanded for all of her retractions, all of her reversals, all of her extreme sentencings. What else did she? Well, for all of her misconducts, she has been voted off the bench. So I feel like every sentence that has been, everybody that has been sentenced up under the hands of her gavel, I think that it needs to be revisited.
Mm-hmm. And this was the judge that sentenced you?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Judge Petrone, Judge Angela Petrone. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, she was the watchdogs. They have an article in their newspaper speaking on all of her misconducts, along with a few other judges from the Cook County Courthouse.
Mm-hmm. How much did the ward boundaries change after the remap?
Well, they combined. So the majority of the ward is the 34th ward. It was Kerry Austin's ward and Howard Brookins' ward. So they took Kerry Austin and Howard Brookins' ward and combined them. And that makes the new 21st ward.
And how many voters do you have in your ward?
Approximately 50,000.
So you had 14 people in this race. That's a lot of people running. I mean, I remember Lawndale had like 24 for the 24th ward for a while. So how many of them challenged you? How much challenging was going on with these 14?
Just one. One person challenged me. Just one person challenged me. And it was supposed to be a civilian. So I'm like, if one civilian challenged you and you have over 2,500 people that want you in office on your petition, I don't think that one person that challenged you should be able to knock you off the ballot.
It seems as if usually that one person is backed by one of your opponents. That's the way they do it. So
yes, and it came out because this opponent harassed me while we were in early voting. His name was Preston Brown. He harassed me the whole time that we was doing the early voting. He was like, I kicked you off the ballot. What are you still doing here? Why are you still out here? And I'm like, wow, they took up all my signs. They just did a lot.
So did Preston Brown win? Is there a runoff now?
No, he did not. No, he did not. No, he did not. So there was another lady, Delia Gorey, that was running. She's a police officer. I was threatened by her a few times. And she was like, you're taking up my signs. Ma'am, I don't care about your signs. But her and Preston Brown was removing my signs, threatening me, harassing me, intimidating me throughout the whole race.
So we met at the Chicago chapter of America's Future. It was a round table and Aldermanic forum with many candidates, over a dozen candidates, and you were speaking on education. So now that you have not won your race for 24th Ward
you
Alderman,
can't even say I haven't won it, because when I go to the Board of Election, I don't know why they would say it's a runoff. They're saying it's a runoff, but they haven't even told me how many votes I've gotten as a write-in candidate. Mm-hmm. So I asked, where are my votes at? I haven't seen them. And they're saying it's difficult for them to count write-in votes. I don't see how it's difficult to count write-in votes, because my votes were typed into the computer just like everybody else was. You know, you have to punch right in and then type in my name. And so if you seen a candidate that you wanted to vote for, you just needed to punch by their name. Well, you needed to punch by write-in and type my name in. So I don't see where the difficulty come in with tallying my votes, but I haven't received my votes yet.
Did they say about when they will give you the tally?
They said about the 15th of March, so that should be tomorrow. But how can you say there's a runoff if you haven't given everybody their votes? If you haven't counted all the votes, how can you say it's a runoff? And I asked them that question, and I said, so why is it that a write-in candidate, me, does not have my votes? They say because it's very rare that a write-in candidate wins. I said, well, you said rare. You didn't say that they don't win. So how can you say that there's a runoff and you don't have my votes counted yet? So what would you do if I had more votes than them? Oh, then we will go retract our statement and let them know that the write-in candidate has more votes. I say that's why you all do not, that's why you say that write-in candidates don't often win, because you're not going to go back and retract your statements and say you made an error and the write-in candidate had more votes.
That means that if you did have a lot of votes, you wouldn't have time to campaign before the runoff.
It would be difficult.
And they're marginalizing you. They need to be held accountable. Chicago Board of Elections needs to be held accountable for every single vote, because your vote is your voice, and every vote should count.
Every vote should count. Right. So there's no place that you can find my votes. And so, and I'm like, I want to know how many votes I have, which I know I have quite a few, because the people that signed my petition to get me on the ballot, I went back and talked with them and told them it's just a change of how we have to get me elected. You no longer just punch, you have to punch and type. You have to punch, write in, and then type my name. And, they say the top and the one on the bottom, So I'm at the bottom of the list, the write-in candidate. Can't miss me.
How many other write-in candidates are there in your ward, in the 21st ward?
There was one more. At the end, it was another guy that signed up to be a write-in candidate, and I believe he was put in the race for a distraction.
Okay,
me.
And so he wasn't one of those 14 candidates that were getting signatures.
Well, the 14, some of those was challenged too, so it winded up being just 8 of us on the ballot. Well, yeah, 8.
Mm-hmm.
It winded up just being 8 running.
So are you still inspired to run again? Are you if you don't make it as the 21st Ward Alderman, are you, what are you going to do? Are you going to still try to fulfill some of your campaign promises that you can without the office?
Absolutely. Like I had put together something to get the senior citizens together and teach them how to fill out the forms for the tax freeze for the senior citizens. That's one of the number one things I want to do. And like returning citizens, we need programs that will help them to get their record expunged expediently, because we have these returning citizens that come into the community, and if they can't get a job, if they cannot get a place to stay, I mean, what do you want them to do? It resorts them back to crime. Mm-hmm. It's just that I had knowledge of being an entrepreneur, so I was able to start my own business. But without that, without finances, what are you left to do? You're sending them back to a life of crime. That's their only source of survival.
When you were a vendor with Streetwise, did you get a lot of experience seeing how returning citizens were at a disadvantage at that time?
I did. When I was at Streetwise, I was first homeless. I was homeless, and that's when I became an entrepreneur. I sold Streetwise papers. I was able to manage my money, save my money to get me a place to live. I was able to go back to school, and I watched a lot of other vendors go back to school, buy homes, cars, pay their tuition to go to schools and things like that. Streetwise allows us the ability to become self-sufficient with selling those papers. If you budget your money wisely, you can become a very successful person selling Streetwise newspapers.
So you started selling the Streetwise papers, and then you moved your way on up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I started selling the Streetwise newspapers, and I did a lot of encouraging people to save their money, to start their own businesses, and things like that. So they had a system where they would have someone to represent the vendors on the board of directors that would take the entrance of the vendors back to the board and find ways to better assist the vendors in becoming self-sufficient. So they would have an election. So me and another young lady ran for vendor rep, and I got the most votes, and I won the election, and I became a board member.
When you when you learn to manage money and save money and go to school, was that all from Streetwise? Was it Streetwise who was teaching you this, that you knowledge that you didn't have before?
Yes. At that time, we had an executive director named Anthony Oliver, and he taught me a lot. As a matter of fact, he taught a lot of vendors, a lot of things, and I guess helped us to get our pride back. You know, he was very good with working with the vendors and holding classes to teach us how to manage our money, and he was just very uplifting.
Was Anthony Oliver ever homeless as well?
Oh, no. He was the executive director. He was the founder of Streetwise.
I see.
There's a lot of things that is not being recorded about Streetwise, like from, let's see, 1995, when I started, up until 2005. The board that is now and existed has wiped out that history. They have totally wiped out that history. And I was on the board of directors when they started forming their own board and doing things that they wanted to do. I would go back to this new board and take back the issues of the Streetwise vendors, which they totally disregarded. And after my terms on being on the board of directors at Streetwise, they haven't had another Streetwise vendor on the board of directors at Streetwise since, because they don't want to hear the issues of the vendors. They are dictators. This board now, let's see, they have Bruce Crane, Pete Caden. Those are some of the ones that are like dictators. I remember a time when I was there, and these are all facts. Pete Caden, he did a TV show. No, he did a fundraiser with the news, raising money for one of the homeless guys, and it was supposed to get him housing and things like this. Well, Pete got the money and never gave it to the homeless guy. You know, when he got the money, he did get him an apartment, but he did not give him his money to manage his own money. And so when the young man died, Pete kept his money. Mm-hmm. And when you do a fundraiser page, I thought you do a fundraiser and you give the person the money once the funds are raised.
Mm-hmm. And that was never investigated?
No. No. There's a lot of things that has not been investigated. There was a man, executive director, Jim Lambianco, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. they did not like how I was actually talking up for the vendors at the time, because they was trying to raise the price on the magazine, which they had just did a fundraiser. So you just raised all this money. Why are you trying to raise the price on the vendors? And so I fought against that. And I was actually jumped on by the executive director at the time named Jim LaBianco. Mm-hmm. And then by me being the homeless person, when the police came, they told me that they would arrest me if I didn't leave. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things. Streetwise is good for the vendor, but it's a lot of things that goes on behind those closed doors that people just don't know.
Mm-hmm. And when you were, we are running low on time. However, we do want to mention that when I tried to research about Streetwise, it was very hard to research information about you. So maybe what you were talking about, that information got lost.
It didn't get lost. It got destroyed. Mm-hmm. All right. But okay. I have something. Well, I have something right here.
Well, we have
yeah, we are
right there. My name as the on. This is one of the magazines, mm-hmm. and they have the board of directors here, okay. and my name is right there in the board of directors.
Patricia, we are out of time. Yeah. We have so much more to talk about. However, thank you so much for joining us on Community Unity Now, the D-Tycoon Show. This is Bill Morton. And I am Trudy Leung. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. Next week we will not be on the air, but please join us on March 28th. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Good night.